All right. I
Hell
think
yeah.
that's going to have to do it.
That's
It's kind of
perfect,
funny.
dude. That's perfect.
Of all my tripods, right? Like I've got one fancy ass Really Right Stuff one. The rest of them are two vets. And I use the Really Right Stuff one, right? So it's like a $1,500 freaking top of the line Really Right Stuff. And it has an aluminum freaking clamp for my phone because it's the only thing I found that I can't break. Freaking, so it's kind of hilarious. I've got like, my fanciest, most badass fucking tripod is just for my phone.
Yeah.
But
Dude,
anyway.
that's the way life happens, man. Tony Cowden, welcome to Security Halt podcast, man. How you doing?
Great, brother. Freaking great.
Dude,
well,
if we
except for some technical difficulties. Yeah.
Hey, it's all right. We're not 18 Echoes here, and we don't have the 18 Echo
right?
support. Dude, you've done everything and you continue to defy the odds and continue to do everything. But dude, from being SF, being a contractor, helping run nonprofits, wanting to run for government office, like what is it? What's left for Tony to do, and what will he not do?
Jesus, man. Like I said, I'm sorry to everyone. I'm freaking fighting with the phone staying stable. Man, it's funny. I was just talking to Melissa, my wife, about this. It's like as I've hopefully matured. And if you guys can't hear, I'm now surrounded by every kind of damn farm animal. You can probably hear that damn rooster on the front porch. We got this new baby rooster who thinks he's one of the puppies. Like I leave the door open most of the day, for fresh air and stuff. And I'm working. I turn around, this chicken is freaking sitting on one of the dog beds in the living room. I'm like, it was rooster. So anyway, that dude hangs out on the front porch now and makes racket all day. But yeah, man, for me, as I've figured it out, like I'm just an accomplishment based person, right?
Yeah.
What I did yesterday was yesterday. And now it's like, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? And so like, even early on in my career, after a couple of, deployments in SF, it was like, what's next?
Yeah.
What's next? I went to West Virginia selection and I also dropped a flight packet since I had to get a flight physical, right? Pace plan, right? Pace plan.
Whichever one of these works.
Yeah, because in my mind, I had already done the SF mission, I had already done, sorry guys, I'm going to fix this freaking, clearly I was out running around doing dumb shit right before this podcast.
Hey, it's the way to do it, man. It's the way to do it. We're good.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Build a range, shoot all the time, right? No, build a range, maintain a range all the time.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was kind of like, what else is there to do in SF? Did the unconventional mission in both Afghanistan, the initial push, and then Iraq, and got to do cool DA stuff. Got to do regular SUT field stuff. It was like, well, what's left? Well, so I started obviously looking at the other units out there. I had to do another deployment basically because like I was committed, right? And you can't abandon your team to go, to somewhere else. And I broke my back. I thought my career was over. I didn't think I'd be able to fly. I didn't think I'd ever be in good enough shape to, meet the requirements of the SNU and all that stuff. So I started looking elsewhere in contracting land. And so went that route. And I always kind of had the intent, to go back in and fly. That didn't really work out. I did go back into, to the guard SF side, with the idea of, giving back to the next generation.
Yeah.
And which I did. I wound up teaching down at 20th Group's ASD. 20th Group has an ASD instead of ASC, Advanced Skills Detachment. And, teaching, SODIC back then, CIPSIC now, SAFAU, Master Breacher, any of those courses, man, to help that the new guys learn the lessons that that we learned, hopefully, and learn in the schoolhouse instead of downrange. And I really enjoyed that. Can't say I really enjoyed being in the National Guard per se. Good Lord, man, freaking, it's I don't know, man. I hope hopefully Elon Musk can freaking they can shift his focus to the National Guard at some point. Even if it's last. But the National Guard is a nightmare, and because 20th Group and 19th Group belong to the different states, they're not immune. Their money gets taken by the state, spent on other stuff. It's the Guard, man. So as far as that part, that was cool. But yeah, it's just always just been what's the next thing? What am I going to do next? Which is kind of funny because I'm kind of at a little impasse right now. Um, I don't know what's next. I mean,
That's the
I've
first
been
time for Tony.
yeah, having a conversation with my cousin last week about potentially starting a construction business, like a site preparation, land clearing business. Um, I was just talking to a fellow yesterday about potentially looking into opening a ketamine clinic. I have in the last 3, 4 years become intimate or at least involved in the plant medicine scene. Uh, my introduction to that was Ibogaine with Ambio Life and Trevor Millar and all those guys down in Tijuana that everybody talks about. The most profound thing I've ever done in my life. Um, for most guys, many guys, that stuff is life saving. I wasn't in that kind of space. I went for degenerative brain issues from BTBI, and but saw experienced what that stuff does for PTSD as well. I probably had a little more PTSD that I was toting around than I was aware of. It
Yeah, yeah.
it showed me that stuff. So I can't help but since I was one of the earliest, especially Army side guys, a lot of the SEALs were already going and doing the iboga, and of course, psilocybin's been a thing for a while now. With Rogan and all those guys talking about it. I just, that wasn't a space I was in, man. Freaking, and then I was having a really rough time with headaches. I was getting dumber by the day. Like I thought maybe I had early onset of Alzheimer's, but obviously it was linked to my TBI. Went
Operator
and did
syndrome is
that
real.
stuff.
Operator syndrome is real, man.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and I think I've been able to keep my symptoms suppressed out of just super healthy living, staying fit, eating religiously healthy. I quit drinking almost 15 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, man. And that was
Fuck
more of
yeah.
a
That's one thing we don't talk about enough. We don't talk about if we
not
wanna be absolute machines and performance and be focused on performance enhancement in every avenue, you take an 18 Bravo and you show them the latest tech and triggers and barrels and how to make your weapon system run smooth as fuck, and he'll do everything he can to buy everything and outfit everybody's rifles and pistols the best. I've
that's right.
seen it, but you talk about performance in the gym and guys are almost like, "Okay, well, I'll take this, I'll do that, but I'm not gonna give up drinking." Why?
Right.
Why?
Man, I'll tell you, I have a little disdain for some of the older guys that a lot of guys look up to. With their whiskey and their, the posted pictures, they're like romanticizing consuming that poison. I personally think it's irresponsible as a mentor type person, as a senior, to somehow portray that poisoning ourselves is a good thing. And we know, man, that stuff is a depressant. It definitely, is a factor in suicides. Maybe not all of them. I'm not speaking in absolutes, but I try really hard to speak to my experiences, right? I try desperately hard to not tell you what you should do, but share with you what I've experienced and let you take that information and do what you want with it. I quit drinking because, like a lot of us, I make bad decisions when I'm drunk. Uh, as a contractor, I was gone 3 to 4 months, come home 2 to 4 weeks, drink like a maniac, party my ass off, and then joke that I got to get back overseas to sober up because I didn't drink overseas. That wasn't a thing. I did it once and paid for it greatly. Um, I drank like a fifth of,
Allegedly.
yeah. Well, I was a contractor, so it wasn't violating General Order 1 and stuff. But yeah, I drank like a fifth of, you know, Kentucky bourbon made in Turkey, and I paid for it. I mean, eh, just horribly paid for it. Our plane got canceled, so I sat on the tarmac in Mosul, like in the middle of the afternoon in
Oh,
July. Freaking wound up having to take an IV. Freaking like, dude, and that was I think '06, probably '05, '06, and I didn't drink overseas since.
lesson learned.
But come home, party my ass off, freaking, and then luckily for me, Melissa came along. And Melissa is a complete nerd, straight A student, scholarships, all that stuff, big brain, all that shit. That's challenging being married to someone that is smarter than I am.
Oh, yeah. I
Um,
know the pain.
but she is. Uh, but I was lucky enough to recognize that if I kept drinking, I would never stand a chance with that girl. And when I met her, man, I did, right? Like that chick had a, and still does has this effect on me. And so I made a very mature decision to quit drinking. And she was part of it. She and I went out a couple of times. And then we just started doing cool stuff like climbing 14ers and hiking wildernesses and that. And obviously that didn't really support drinking. So I quit that. And I'm glad I did because I've reaped the benefits. I mean I just turned 49. I'm always very clear with guys. I am on TRT. Part of my brain injury means I am, have, and always will be. Um, so that's a good thing, right? I'm a huge advocate for all of our guys, right? Like, hey man, go get tested,
You
get your
have
test
to.
tested,
You
right?
absolutely have to. I mean, the Doctor Free, everything that he published, and if guys, if you're still not reading it, if you haven't picked up the book, if you haven't gotten the white paper study, just send me an email. I'll send you the white paper study. I will break it down to you, or tune into one of the other shows that I produce, Broken Brains. We talk about that ad nauseum.
Yeah,
But your endocrine system and your brain are connected, and a vast majority of us were already at lower levels of testosterone while we were in. Because guess what? Coming out of selection, coming out of those hard schools, we should have been tested. We should have been tested for our levels. We should have had a baseline understanding of where our
right.
testosterone levels was. Because let me tell you, if you look in your team room and you start feeling like, oh man, like that guy's better than me, he's got more fuel left in the tank. Everybody else is like really able to keep burning. I'm like, you might want to check your endocrine system. You might want
Yeah,
to check out your testosterone levels. And we have to kill this myth that it's like, oh, you're on a performance enhancing drug. Like, no, you're literally giving your body what it needs.
right. And let's face it, we started to see at the end of the GY support for it. And now it's like it's that pendulum starting to swing back. And so, you got captains that were captains that were just as much part of, you know, whatever pharmacy runs, that the team was making, 10 years ago. But
Yeah.
now he's a lieutenant colonel or a colonel, and he's not going to stand for his guys. It's just like, hey man, you were like I said, you were doing the pharmacy runs and buying gravel. We remember you there, Colonel. Um, like, hey man, let's get rid of this stigma that it's used in steroids, and let's start looking at it exactly what it is. It's if you've got guys that are deficient and low, and that's another problem, right? Is the normal levels in the United States are completely wrong, right? You can be low normal at 250. Well, that's also the same levels of like a 14-year-old girl, I mean, not that bad, but you see what I'm saying? Like optimal is, 700 to 900. And there's no reason for us not to be there, right? Because it is available and we know it's safe. A lot of guys, a lot of people, Americans, don't realize that the whole demonizing of PEDs, testosterone, steroids, whatever you want to call it, started back in the 80s as part of the Cold War propaganda.
Really?
Yeah, and I kind of learned this through owning a gym and Olympic weightlifting, right? Like the sport of Olympic weightlifting and how it's tested and talking to those athletes at the training center and all that kind of stuff. And it went both ways, right? So Cold War, we demonized the Russians, right? Remember Rocky?
Rocky, yeah. Yeah.
Rocky, man. If if he dies, he
He
dies.
dies.
And Dolph Lundgren was, using all his steroids and all
Yeah,
this
all the
stuff, right?
tech.
Well, and I'll tell you, one of the biggest purveyors of this was John McCain,
Hmm.
right? And WADA and USADA, right? Those organizations for testing. So they demonized this stuff, made Russia look like this, added to the evil empire of Russia, right? While Russia had a performance enhancing drug program, right? We had anti. So we were really only screwing ourselves. But that's where it finds its root. On the other side, it's kind of entertaining. Have you ever heard of like Bulgarian split complexes and Bulgarian training? So the Bulgarians, were just crushing at the Olympics, right? So the part of the propaganda was they put out the Bulgarian split training programs. It's bullshit. They were absolute horseshit. It's not what they were doing. Those guys were lifting like 3 times a week. Instead, they released this program where it had you training 3 times a day. So Americans started training that way, and you'll still hear it in the training world today. I'm doing a Bulgarian split training program. And I'm like, oh, you mean you're overtraining? It was by design. It's so cool to kind of go back and look at the history of all that. But yeah, they purposefully released this program. So now you've got Americans doing this 3 a day program, and they're
Just
not
killing
advanced
themselves.
because USADA won't let them. So they can't recover. So they got weaker and performed worse. so
Motherfuckers.
so we've got to get past that. And whether it's the plant medicine stuff or TRT, HRT, you know, and I think it's happening, right? I know it's happening. I talked to a lot of MDs out there, just like yourself, right? And the doctors are now starting to get on board. Hell, my older sister is a pediatric endocrinologist, and she's been in biotech research for the last 25 years, right? You can Google her name and you'll just get pages. And even she's fed up with Western medicine, right? She's just like, we're going about it all wrong. And now she's curious about the plant medicines and all that kind of stuff. And the realization that US and Western medicine has become big pharma's, you know, prescribing medicines,
Yep.
drugs.
They're in bed together. And that's the thing
Absolutely.
that's really harmful when we get out, when you do that handshake with the VA, as you agree that we're going to take care of you. We're going to be your provider for your health care. We're going to be your provider for your well-being. And then you realize within those first few appointments, it just becomes nothing but a running list of medications.
Right.
They're not looking at you to enhance and improve your injuries and what you're dealing with. They're
Yeah.
looking to get you to be comfortable, sedated, and not complain.
Be
Exactly.
quiet.
And you probably seem to see you probably have the same issue. You get your monthly shipment of, you know, for me, you still get boxes of all these separate different things. But let me tell you, the hardest fight to get is testosterone. The
I know.
hardest fight to get. And here's the thing about it. If you're low and you're at a deficit, you're going to experience things like weight gain. You're going to experience things like insomnia. You're going to experience things like feeling depressed.
Right.
Hmm. These are all things that they're going to prescribe you to and put you on SSRIs for.
Right.
These are all things that are going to put
Well,
you on different medications that will affect you in horrible ways. You'll feel like your life's on mute, that your world, your experience is muted. You'll feel a little bit better. Maybe you're dealing with some depression. Maybe that'll go away for a little bit. But
yeah.
then you realize you
Well,
give people the TRT, you get them into a gym, you get them around people, you get them into an ability to like communicate with others. Now you're not depressed anymore. It's like, oh shit, like you addressed the endocrinology of the patient, and you
right.
address the issue first rather than try to mute it with a bunch of shit, and they get better.
Well, and I take it one step further, right? So, test, estrogen, progesterone, those are all secondary hormones. You have to look at the primaries, cortisol, thyroid, and because that's a cascade effect. And like you said earlier, everything's connected, right? Linking back to alcohol, the gut is a
Yeah.
second brain. Most people, you ask them like, hey, where's serotonin? Where's, where the neurotransmitters produced? Where's dopamine produced? They're like, well, the brain. And I'm like, no, those are produced in the small intestines. So you're taking alcohol, you're eating all this nasty poison that's American food, and you're destroying the gut. Well, that's directly linked to the brain. And there are thousands of neurotransmitters. They don't even know what they are, right? We always hear, epinephrine, norepinephrine. Those are exciting, adrenalines. And then, of course, dopamine and serotonin. Those are the ones people like to talk about. There are actually thousands of them, but they're all made in the gut. So if we're damaging our gut with all these nasty poisons, and that's what they are, and I think we need to start calling it that, poison. Because I'll ask people like, you want to take a sip of antifreeze every morning? And they're like, what? No. I was like, well, you might as well be, because many of the things that we slowly poison ourselves with in American processed food are just as lethal as old school antifreeze. So yeah, man, I I'm hopeful, and I use that word very, very reluctantly, because hope is, you know, it's rarely
It's
something
not a
we
course
really
of
put in
action.
our- right. Yeah, but I see the changes. It just sucks, like Congress. Just the other day, RFK, they're all fighting RFK, right? Like, oh my God, we got this dude, that's really been hired to try to make our, food and drugs better, healthier, and they're fussing. But something he was talking about was with Nova and Ozempic, right? Ozempic's the new magic drug you take, lose all the weight. Oh
Not
my
so
God,
much.
man. But it's poison. It's, they put my uncle on that shit. Dude was 81 years old. Within 2 weeks, his health just deteriorated all to hell. Stopped it. The dude's right back, right? And he's a farmer, man. Dude's a hardworking old son, like hard dude. But Ozempic almost killed him.
Jeez.
Why are they putting, an 80-year-old on something like that who literally, man, he just needed to lose like 20 pounds, but he's also diabetic, man. He's got other things going on. He's a Southerner. So, typically most Southerners don't get past 65 without diabetes, which is reversible. You don't want to hear the medical community don't want to talk about that. But my point was with Ozempic, apparently over 100 sitting congresspersons have received direct donations from Nova. Well, Nova's not even a U.S. company, right? So they have to have a U.S. conglomerate so they can buy our politicians.
Yep.
60 plus of them are Republicans,
Get the fuck out of here.
right? So right now
Jeez.
everybody's all like, y'all, the Republicans are like, yeah. And all your Republican congresspersons are like, oh, yeah, I love Trump. I'm on Trump. I'm doing what Trump wants. But just weeks ago, they were taking money, right? And I can use my congressman as a good example. He's an MD, right? Greg Murphy. And he loves to tell people he's an MD, right? Worse than a CrossFitter. He's like, well, as a physician, like, hey, man, we get it, Greg. We heard you like the last 1,000 times. You're supposed to be a representative and an advocate for North Carolina District 3. So stop being a doctor. And besides, you're a urologist, dude. Right? Um, Big Pharma after Big Pharma after Big Pharma contributions,
Man.
right? That dude doesn't know and doesn't care about making people healthier. You know what I mean? Because most doctors, and that's the funny thing about Americans, is they actually think their doctors know anything about nutrition.
Yeah. And
That's not what they're taught.
that's it. That's it. We assume, all of us assume, that a general practitioner is just going to have all the information. And that's why I tell guys, you have to have the ability to sit down and do the research yourself,
Hmm.
advocate for yourself. And I know,
Yep.
dude, nobody wants to sit through peer to peer reports and journals and read and try to digest what's real, what's not. But you have to, when it comes to your health, you have to be willing
Yeah.
to sit down and look at the journals, be able to discern what's garbage, what's true, what's valid, and then show up to your appointment. Like that's what I did when I went through my VA appointments. I brought the white paper study from Dr. Free on operator syndrome and be like, why are you giving me this test to try to determine if I have TBI when it's at best utilized for a concussion that just may have occurred on a practice football field within the last 3 to 4 hours.
Right.
Like, and then they look at you like, "Oh shit, you you actually read something." Like, yeah, you're gonna try to give me, and that's why they give guys a higher PTSD rating. Fun fact, because they're
Yeah.
not gonna sit there and take the time to actually pay you for TBI, even though now we know that it's a signature injury of the fucking GWAT. Because
Right.
how many Carl Gustavs did you shoot, Tony? How many breaching charges did you eat? How many times were you around explosions?
Or as we're finding out, the 10-inch carbines are producing as much psi at 1 meter off the muzzle than the door charges were setting off.
Yep.
Right. So like at 37 and 19, you will run suppressors.
Yeah.
That should be policy across DoD, right? If you're shooting inside a structure, you should have to have a suppressor on your weapon. Of course, it's not that way. And the catwalk, flashbangs, dude, flashbangs are producing, 4 psi and stuff at 2 meters. Like, you know,
Yeah. The
it,
people we have to look out for our E7s, E8s, our cadre at the Charlie course, our cadre at range 37. These are individuals whose exposures are through the roof, but
yeah,
nobody's talking to them. We talked about
nope,
lead exposure. We have the soaps
yeah,
at the schools,
yeah,
and but on the backside, when these guys are doing their handover and going back to their quote unquote regular jobs on an ODA, how are you following these guys?
right.
How are
They're
you
not
following or tracking? They're not. Like, that's
right.
criminal.
Yeah, and let's face it, man, we're our own worst enemies,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
When you're young, right, you want to ride that charge. What's the minimum safe distance? 9 feet. Let's call it 5.
Yeah.
Let's ride that charge. Luckily, with the techniques changing of clearing from outside, we lost that tactical reason for rushing a charge. So but we can't say that we made a mature decision to stop charging ourselves freaking and eating TBIs on the daily. My very first shooting package, man, we were riding charges, and it was hot out. We were up in Ohio at an old gas fuel refinery like Ashland, Ohio, Ashland Fuel, and just old office buildings like World War II barracks type office buildings, man, door after door after door, fun. And after about 3 days, both the ODAs were so exhausted. I mean, like sick. And we were like, oh, it's because it's hot out. Looking back, man, it was charges. It was charge after charge after charge. I mean, and we were bragging about how many we had done, and so we can be our own worst enemies, right? We need the sensors, we need all that stuff. And as you trickle down away from the tier one units, all that goes away. I mean, dude, if you saw the shoot house, one of the shoot houses we use at 20th Group, or they still use at 20th Group, I have recently left 20th Group. Dude, it, how it's even legal for them to still use that place, I don't know. I mean, lead, it's just, I mean, it's horrible. It's an old piece of shit. And anybody listening to this as 20th Group guys know what I'm talking about. They finally poured some concrete in it a couple of years ago. I mean, it was dirt floors, and I mean, just horrible. You set a charge off, man, it's just dust. Even from the M4s, dust was kicking up. And I was like, man, why are we using this when we have a nice shoot house right up there on the hill? Well, it was just logistics. It was easier to use. Again, going back to us being our own worst enemies. Um, Hopefully one day they'll, I used to joke that like maybe lightning will strike that old shoot house and we'll get rid of it. But it's not safe. Uh, Man, I'm a huge advocate. I talk to guys like, hey man, get your blood work done. I get my blood work done no less than twice a year and typically every quarter. And the only reason I
That's smart.
don't is because if I'm gone or something like that. Um, in the absence of all of that, look around and find a good example,
Yeah.
right? I was on the phone with my cousin, and I grew up very, very rural North Carolina, right? Redneck, borderline white trash. Um, Luckily my cousins have, improved over the years. They're doing pretty good. But she went to the doctor. She's 39 years old, and her doctor said, "Oh, you're pre-diabetic. It might be time to start you on whatever that, what is it, Foreman or whatever that pre-diabetes drug is." And I told her, I was like, please don't. please just stop eating junk food. And she's like, yeah, I know. Like people know, but they just can't stop. That's how addictive these processed foods really are. And while I am very anti-government, right, anti-government influence, I think the government should provide protection, pave roads, and that's about it. Like the stuff it says is authorized in the
Yeah,
Constitution.
yeah.
You
Call
know,
us old fashioned.
right? You know what I mean? And I know most of our politicians have never read the damn thing, but it's only about a 30-minute read. Um, there's At this point, we do need the government to step in, like other governments
Absolutely.
have done, right? Like, Google American foods banned in Europe, and you'll scroll and scroll and scroll, like literally Gatorade. Can't American made or Gatorade cannot be sold in the EU. And the list goes on and on and on, from Pop Tarts to mac and cheese. And then the exact
Cereals.
same company is making a variation that can be sold in that country.
Absolutely.
So at this point, I actually think the government needs to step in. As much as I hate saying that, right? Government regulation, man, is I detest it, right? I detest the thought of it. I'm like, get out of our lives. But in this case, man, if we continue down this path, we're only going to get more and more unhealthy, and that's scary. So
Yeah, it's crazy to think that we're more concerned about bottom line dollar figures at a company than the health and wellness of our American public. And it's shit. It's
it
absolutely
is.
shit. Like we shouldn't have to watch our parents or uncles or cousins slowly die.
Yeah.
And dude, it's a drug. Sugar and all these additives are a fucking drug.
You know,
Um,
I stopped eating processed carbs in the late '90s. Not because I like really knew much better. I just knew to stay lean. I didn't need all these extra carbs, right? As I went through phases of doing triathlons and ultra marathons, yeah, I ate more carbs. But at that point, I had learned that clean food is better. So I was eating paleo before paleo became like a catchphrase for eating healthy. I have recently, well, almost a year now, I'm at 11 months of eating carnivore. Um, but my point all that is like, in the absence of blood work, in the absence of, you know, knowing anything, look around and find someone that is healthy and just copy what they're doing.
Dude, it could right going right back to being a Green Beret. Like, what does success look like on a team?
Right.
Like,
Yep.
it's like, hey, just
Yeah.
copy and paste what that the 18 Fox is doing, and
Yep.
then when it comes time, you'll get a shot at the school. Just do exactly as your senior did. Follow those guidelines, and not enough people are
Yeah.
taking that approach. But I think
Or
too,
if you know they're all screwed up, do the
yeah,
opposite.
yeah, but I think that it adds an extra layer of complexity when we're online. Uh, and you talked about this the other day on a post, just talking about tactics. Everybody wants to like put their spin on things, and they look like a professional. They look that they polish what they're delivering, and then people are falling to the wayside by following that, whether it's shooting, whether it's health and fitness. Like it's getting harder and harder to discern what's the right thing to do when it comes to whether it's shooting and training or health and fitness. And you have to really look at somebody and find out, like, okay, like, is this guy really selling something that's sustainable and good for me, that can help me improve in my shooting, can help me improve in my fitness, or is he just full of absolute fucking dog shit?
Right. Right. Well, and when it comes to fitness, it's usually easy to figure out. Is it going to be difficult? Is it strenuous? Oh, okay. Well, that's probably pretty legit, right? If it's a 1995, cure all pill, or this awesome new program, or this awesome new diet, like there's nothing new under the sun here, guys. Uh, and like with the tactics and techniques, tactical guys love to assume. I always say, I'll ask guys like, "Hey, give me the definition of the word tactical," and they just look at me, and I'm like, "You don't even know it, do you?" Tactical shooting? Like, what are you talking about? Shooting, shooting. It's put your sights on a target. Don't disturb the gun as you press the trigger. It doesn't matter if you're shooting a competition or you're shooting in, hunting, or if you're shooting two-legged creatures and doing CQB, right? The shooting part is the shooting part. Tactics are all the moving and parts that go into interdicting a target, right? Or not getting interdicted, right? Sometimes the bad guys have good days too. So, when I ask guys like, oh, so you were doing tactical shooting, describe it to me. And they're like, yeah, I was shooting from the 3, 5, 7, 10, 15, and 25-meter line at a paper target. And I was like, so you were standing still shooting a still target. So what's tactical about that? Right? No, that's skill development. That's skill development. It's just like we were going to go do, a bunch of halo jumps. I mean, is it tactical, or if it's just slick? We're working on some skills. You know what I mean? That one day could be applied to a true infill that will have tactical considerations. So I'm like, hey man, pump the brakes on all the tactical stuff a little bit. And it's kind of comedy to me. And I think sometimes on my social media posts, my humor is lost. My sarcasm can get lost because you're not listening to me, and I was being kind of sarcastic, like, "Hey man, so you're in the Ranger Regiment from '06 to 2010. You did 6 pumps. You got out as an E5 team leader. Cool. Now you're going to talk to me about planning considerations as if you were ever a ground force commander, like." Come on, bro. Or you were the junior E6, the junior Bravo, or maybe you were the
Yes,
junior Bravo on an ODA for a couple of trips, and got out. Okay, cool, man. That's some stuff, but let's be realistic. The magic. I mean, heck, man. Everybody wants to talk CQB. CQB is one of the dumbest things we can do. It's dangerous. Freaking, it's how we get screwed up. There's a reason we have dogs and gas and all this other stuff. So we don't have to go in there and set off the tripwires and all that stuff. We can't help it. We want to do it because it's probably kind of fun. But it's dangerous as hell. I tell guys all the time when working as the small teams as a contractor, man, as a 4, 6, or even 8-man team, ain't but so big of targets we could do anyway. So
exactly.
we're a lot more we operated way more like narcotics, like strike teams, not like a SWAT team. So we had to snatch dudes out of their cars and stuff like that, hit them in those spaces where they couldn't be as easily defendable. And that's just being smarter. I used to tell guys all the time, the best operations are one that there were no shots fired. You're not gonna get any medals for it, but those are the good operations, right? Where nobody gets hurt, freaking you capture who you need to capture, you get the intel you need to get. Because if I go on a target, smoke every single dude on target, I'm not getting any intel.
Absolutely.
So,
There's that
it's just
F
that,
F3AD.
right. So, I get it, man. I'm not a very good marketing guy, right? I'm not trying to sell, the latest kit. A lot of, as a contractor, man, I get what I get. I it's not like we're rolling in with all our fancy stuff, in a dip pouch, on a plane. No, man, we're buying stuff off the economy. You know, I mean, heck, I have literally taken freaking zip ties and taped them to plates to make a plate carrier. Duct tape, and freaking zip ties. I've seen dudes cut leather belts to make straps and duct tape it to our plates, because that's all we had because we couldn't fly in with a multi-cam plate
Yeah.
carrier. Um, so, heck, I did a trip one time where I wound up with like a freaking 5-shot Rossi revolver as my sidearm. And I'm like, and when the dude gave it to me,
You're
cool. I
playing this
popped the
video
cylinder
game
open.
on legendary mode.
It had 338 rounds in it. It didn't even have 5 shots. And I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? This is cute.
How the fuck did I get myself in this situation?
Right. And it's like, oh, here's your, wherever made carbine. I'm like, does it work? I think so. you know, well, I guess we'll find out. So, I guess part of me, I don't get wrapped up around kit and stuff like a lot of guys might in the marketplace, the tactical cool guy marketplace. So, I realize that a lot of it's marketing, it's capitalism, it's consumerism, and guys want cool stuff, and I just don't value it the same as a lot of guys do. And I also don't have a retail sales side of my business.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I
It's
did, then I would probably sell the baddest freaking battle belt ever.
yeah.
I would put my name on it too, freaking it'd be the Tony Cowden Super Batman belt, with all the latest and greatest shit on it that will
Look,
make you
all
and
the
your race
operators are
session this
using this.
weekend look really cool.
Yeah, everybody has their latest, they're selling their latest goods out there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was always a big fan of Kyle Lamb stuff. Just shit works. If it works, if it's reliable, don't fucking touch it. Don't fucking
I,
touch it.
I just shot an NRL match, and Kyle's shooting nose, and I still call him Sergeant Major Lamb, man, because I respect that dude greatly. I met him in '04 in Iraq. My boss and him had been in Ranger Regiment together and then unit together. Um, and as a young dumb trooper, man, I knew that dude was legit.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Everything about that dude was legit, and still to this day, man, that dude is a stud,
Yeah, he puts his name
right?
on something. As an 18 Bravo, I was gonna fucking buy
Right.
it.
And it's funny. I remember when, like all of a sudden the VTAC sling hit the market, and I'm looking at my Alice Pack strap that I have attached to my rifle, and I was like,
Son of a bitch.
damn it. You just
It's like,
literally made,
yeah,
I don't know how much money selling an Alice Pack strap.
yeah.
And
But
we
it
had been
fucking
using
worked.
them.
It fucking
We used to
worked.
just call it our sling.
Yeah.
Now it's a VTAC sling. It's like, damn it, that's the smartest shit.
Dude, I tell
Uh,
you, I've spent more fucking GPC money on his slings because I'm like, every weapon system in this
yeah,
detachment will have this. And then as a warrant officer, same thing. Like, we're
right.
gonna buy all of these fucking slings because I know they fucking work.
And let's face it, man, freaking every sling that's come out after that has tried to better it.
Yeah.
And I don't know that any really have. And it literally is just an Alice Pack freaking buckle.
Bro, right now in my gun safe, every one of my rifles, VTEX.
Same. And I have a box full of every other kind because dudes are like, hey, try my sling. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's cool, but I'm just gonna go back to the regular one. Like, I don't even like the ones with the pad on. I like the slick ones because the pad gets hung on
It,
stuff,
it does. It does. Yeah. You don't have to go to the version 2. And same Dan Brokos. Same with his gear. It was like if he has Dan's name on it, probably gonna fucking buy
Right.
it.
I have a pretty good reputation for, just being rough on gear. All my buds know, I'm just rough on gear, man. I don't, and you can see it, even like the way I handle my precision rifles, man. Freaking, I just smash stuff. So if I've got something and it's older than a couple years, man, it's reliable, it's durable. And I don't mean like at home, stateside. I'm just crazy rough on stuff because I don't care, right? Overseas, yeah, I take care of my stuff way better. I clean my rifles and all that stuff. At home, man, the threat level here in Harrold's, North Carolina is less than zero, right? We don't have crime here, and if we do, we don't call the cops. Uh, and so I'm not the same as far as the way I treat my gear here as I am, on any trip or whatever. So yeah, I'm a little rough on stuff. If it's breakable, I'm gonna know it real soon. And I mean, that's why, like, if something works, I have a hard time getting away from it. I recently bought my first not Harris bipod.
Really?
Yeah, I
Damn.
use Harris, man.
You were holding out for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. I finally went completely gay and bought an MDT. Yeah, and it is admittedly pretty badass. But at the same time, I've never had a Harris fail me. Period. Not operationally, not in competition, not at the range. Um, so once something works, man, I'm just gonna kind of stick with it. It's like, hey, there's a lot of better guns out there than Glocks as far as like how fast you can shoot them. 2011s are great. I love shooting. I'm old enough to have remember what 1911s feel like. And now with the 2011s, cool. But you know what? Given the choice, I'm still taking a Glock into the freaking workspace. You know, they work. They make loud noises when you press a little button.
Man,
Um,
yeah. That's you know, that I feel the same way. That's still the carry. It's still the daily carry, and
Right.
uh, you know,
Prove it.
yeah, it
You know,
fucking
if
works.
a bunch of 18 series dudes can't break it, man, it's probably pretty good. I would say the only people who are better at testing equipment than us, probably the Rangers. They're rough on stuff, but Marines. You know, what's that old saying? You give Marines two ball bearings, freaking come back in 20 minutes. One's broken, the other one's pregnant. And that's why they have, ACOGs. You can't give Marines a freaking 1 to 10 or,
Oh yeah.
a magnified optic. They'll get it pregnant at lunch. Freaking, and it'll be broken when they pull it out of the arms room. Like, how'd you break it while it's in the freaking safe, dude? No, I love my Marines, man. I'm down here close to Lejeune these days. I worked at MARSOC for a little bit
Oh, nice.
and had recon bubbas and MARSOC guys on my teams over the years. And I have nothing but respect for those
Dude, they
dudes.
make the greatest teammates, dude. One of my greatest friends is a Marsoc guy.
Yeah,
And it's really a stepbrothers relationship. I mean, when they were built, their foundations built off of friggin'
yeah,
ODAs. So it's like we
that's right.
work well together, and it makes perfect sense why when you're out, like there will be some of your best friends if you can have the pleasure of meeting them, man.
Yeah.
It's just so many
I was
similarities.
I opened my gym there in Wilmington, North Carolina, and Wilmington, North Carolina is kind of like Southern Pines for Fort Bragg,
Yeah, yeah.
as, in relationship to Lejeune and the MARSOC guys in Stone Bay. They all want to live down there because it's away from the military. There's prettier girls, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same
Same.
relationship
It's the
Bragg
same.
and Pinehurst Southern Pine has. So I was lucky, man. Like one of the first Marines to ever walk through my gym doors was Aaron Torian, legendary MARSOC dude, KIA, I don't know, probably 10 years ago now. Super stud. Right off the bat, I got to meet one of the baddest former force guys, now MARSOC dude. And it really set my mind like, oh, okay, these guys are on the right track. And they've done nothing but prove that over the years. And, let's face it, the worst thing that ever happened to force was MARSOC
Yeah. Yeah.
because the force guys are studs, man. And hard. They're a lot like Rangers, but in the Marine Corps. And I have always said what an underutilized asset in the United States military, and that's the force platoons, man. And the reconnaissance battalions, man. Those dudes are studs too. But Mama Marine Corps keeps them lashed to that boat.
Yeah,
So
not fair. Those
yeah,
guys are studs. Like
they really
they
are.
they truly make some of the best Green Berets. They really do. Earl Plumley,
Hey man,
he came from
you
that
know,
world. The best 18 Delta I ever had came from that world.
you
The
know,
the dude couldn't function outside of being deployed. Like it was just like I just want to be gone.
right. You know, I steer a lot of guys. I mean, this tells you how bad the Marine Corps, eats its own. That after going through a selection and ITC, those guys are willing to leave and then go through SFAS, almost the same selection, just to go through the Q course, which is arguably in some ways not as hard as ITC. Right? They have a shooting package in ITC that's pass fail. Nobody shoots in the Q course.
Yep.
We should. We've had
Absolutely.
25 years of war to get a
Yeah.
shooting package in the Q course, and we have it.
It's the
But
one
they
thing I
do
don't
that.
understand. Like
Yeah,
why we don't do that.
I had a guy. He's now over in 20th Group. He was uh, a Marine Corps major with a Ranger tab and an airborne. Right? You're talking about a dude who probably will get a star one day in the Marine Corps. It definitely went, a colonel on his way, man, a stud. Resigned his commission, took an E5 spot in 20th Group and went to selection. And he is now 2 years later in E6 in the National Guard. I mean, does that not say how effed up the Marine Corps is that guys are willing to do that kind of stuff just to just get on that greener grass?
Yeah.
Of course, then they get there and they find out it ain't much
Yeah.
greener. But yeah, I would say 7 out of 10 dudes that contact me about joining SF are Marines, you know? And of course, that's because of my proximity and knowing them and all that. But for my cross section of guys that I give the recruiter's number to, it's fucking Marines, man,
Yeah, dude.
you know?
Yeah, the great fucking dudes.
Yeah,
Well, Tony,
and then Lord knows they will do a lot with very little.
oh yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, you you still do so much, and you've got your, like you said, you got your hands in so many different pots. Do you think you'll ever find yourself running for office ever again?
I would run again if I had a Trump endorsement and $1.5 million in the bank account. That's what it would take.
Oh yeah.
Um, to challenge an incumbent rhino like Greg Murphy. Greg Murphy's a political opportunist, right? He will get on his knees for whoever will keep him funded or getting reelected, right? He's not a Trump supporter, but he is now, right? The
Mm,
dude's a rhino. If you look at his vote, he is the most liberal Republican of the 14 of the, so we have 14 congressmen and women in North Carolina. And of those, the Republicans, he is rated the most liberal. A couple of the Democrats are rated more conservative on the voting record than him. Not ideologies, right? Because they
yeah.
say a lot of stuff. But Americans, we don't look at what they're actually voting,
Yeah.
right? We see their posts on Facebook and we're like, yeah,
Yeah, but when they go
conservative.
in, yeah.
But you don't actually look at their vote. So when you
Yeah.
do that, you find out like, oh, wait a minute. This dude actually votes with Democrats more than he does conservatives, right? And I will tell you, man, if there's one thing that running for Congress did, it showed me the Republicans are fucking dirtbags, all the way down to the county level. Craven County, North Carolina, Onslow County, North Carolina, man, it was just disgusting how they treated me and how Greg Murphy treated me. Freaking, instead of just saying, hey, man, may the best man win. Let's sit down. Let's do a debate. He would not debate me, right? He wouldn't get in the same place as me.
Wow.
I mean, dude, I mean, just a spineless coward, right? But any political consultant will tell you that an incumbent should never debate because they won't win, they won't get reelected on a debate, but they could lose a reelection because
Mm,
of a debate. And he wouldn't debate me. He would tell people, obviously I'm not, meathead and knuckle dragger, all those things, right? But he wouldn't actually sit down and match wits with me, right? And his excuse was, I'm a congressman and a doctor. I'm busy, right? No, you're a coward and you're scared to actually have a conversation with a real person, real man, whatever. So yeah, to challenge him again, because after that, man, I just walked away. I deleted almost every political anything, to include friends that post a bunch of political stuff. Um, it was just disgusting, bro. Disgusting. I felt like I just needed a shower. It was disgusting to learn how absolutely despicable Republicans are. They're just another wing on the same bird as the Democrats are, right? They play the exact same game to get what they want, right? It just happens to be they want something different than Dems
mm,
ideologically, right? But the way they play the game exactly the same. The way they take lobby money, the way they trade in campaign finance, right? When you get elected to Congress, and I know some newly elected guys, I knew some guys that got elected last time, right? The first thing they ask is like, hey, committee seats, right? And basically, they're like, well, if you want to be on that committee, we'll see how much money you can raise for the Republican Party in the next quarter. And
mm.
maybe we'll consider you for that committee. Or like, and I'll use Greg as an example. Greg is on the Ways and Means Committee. Ways and Means is a very powerful committee, right? It deals with budgets and funding and that sort of thing. If you look at Greg's campaign finance expenditures, right, what he spent money on out of his campaign funds, it was max contributions to every single voting member of that committee.
Jeez.
He had to pay to get on that committee, right? And that's how that game works. So just because you get elected to Congress, right? If you remember Eli Crane,
Mhm.
right, Navy SEAL, he stood against voting for McCarthy. 2 years ago
Yep.
or about a year and a half ago for speaker.
Speaker,
And
yeah.
he said, I promised my constituents I would not cave. And he was the only one who did not ultimately cave. Right. And he made a joke. He's like, well, I guess my committee seat, because he's a freshman, he's got
Yeah.
no wasta at all, no influence whatsoever. Right. He was like, well, I guess, my committee is going to be in the janitorial closet. So, of course, they did put him on military affairs and I think Homeland. But in the case of another new soft guy I know who was just put up there, um, watch what I say because I don't want to dime him out. I don't have his permission to talk this way. Long story short, new congressman with a background similar to ours. He has a degree that would make sense for him to be on a certain committee. So he said, I'd like to be on that committee. And Johnson, the speaker, was like, yeah, well, we'll see how much money you can raise in the next couple of quarters and maybe you get a spot. They don't care, man. They do not work for us anymore. And that's not a conspiracy theory. It's just how it is. And if you want to know who your representative worked for, because Lord knows Americans love to fuss and whine on Instagram. And I'm like, you can go to the FEC website, but it's a government website. So it is hard to navigate. I think they do it on purpose because if you go to the Electoral Commission, Federal Electoral Commission website, you can find every cent that goes in and out of any money that's associated with your congressperson or senator. But it's not easy. It's a horrible website. However, there's another website that's privately ran, runs off donations. It's called opensecrets.org. If you go there and you type in your congressperson's name, the next thing that clicks up is like donors, freaking contributions, expenses. You can see every cent, every PAC that donated to their campaign, or every PAC that is associated, because that's where the corporate money's at, right?
Just typed it in right now. We're
Yeah,
gonna
dude, it's a rabbit hole. Um, every time I post about this, I get a million DMs like, "Holy shit! I looked up my congressperson, and they're receiving funds from all these things." Um,
Dan Crenshaw.
so wasn't long ago, my awesome representative, so-called representative Greg Murphy, started posting about Chinese money and buyout of land by
Oh,
Chinese firms.
okay. I'm gonna make a post about Dan right now
Uh oh.
after we
Uh
get done
oh.
with this
I
because
got.
I just talked
I
about this a little bit ago.
I wish I had recorded my 2 phone conversations with Dan Crenshaw. I wish I had, man. I was amazed at some of the stuff he said to me. I was like, you don't know me well enough to say these things. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I want to get elected so maybe improve the country. And you're talking about how cool the ski resort is in Park City? Yeah. Anyway, and the perks of being a congressman, like, get the fuck out of here, dude. Um,
It's
that's a
not what it's
different
about.
story.
It's about public service, and
Yeah.
we forgot about this. We forgot
Yeah.
about the fact that it's a public office. You're not supposed to go there to become a multimillionaire.
So that is where we're missing what's really going on. The average
Yeah.
American thinks it's a public office. It is not, it's a corporate office. That's who they work for. Individual contributions into the average congressperson's campaign funds are less than 20%. It's all corporate. So, I was talking about the Chinese firms, right? So, in Eastern North Carolina, we have a lot of hog farms, right? You probably remember some of those.
Yeah.
Smithfield's one of the largest hog producing
Yep.
or pork producing, if not, I think it's the
It
largest in the
is. Yeah.
United States. It is owned by a Chinese firm now. Since Greg Murphy took office, over 50,000 acres in his district has been sold to the Chinese pork farms. And he has taken
What the fuck?
donations from those firms. But then he gets on Facebook and talks about how we need to limit the sale of US properties, especially around government installations, Camp Lejeune, Dew River Air Station, Cherry Point, all right here in his district. So he's saying one thing, but doing the exact opposite. And if you don't look, you'd never know. But it's right there on Open Secrets. You know, you can Google who owns Smithfield Farms, right? You can find that's all public information, right? All of that stuff is out there. But let's face it, man, the average American has, soccer practice to take the kid to, freaking ballet, whatever their kids are into every night of the week and all day Saturday and most of Sunday. And they don't have time to do this stuff. They don't have time to do that research. And so November comes around every other year for Congress and then every 4 years for the big elections. And they vote Republican or they vote Democrat. And that's why we're at where we're at. And until Americans realize and come to the conclusion that this government is doing the things it's doing and has been doing for over 200 years, right? Because people think like this government just got corrupt and just
No,
got
no,
out, right?
no. It's
Dude, there's all kinds of journals and articles about how, like the freaking like the Supreme Court, its power grab within 3 years of the founding of our nation. The Supreme Court was never supposed to have the power that it does today. And it took that power early on in this republic. Yeah, man. And, until I hear a politician saying things like, I want to return the federal government to its constitutional limits. Like, when have you ever heard, like, you're not even hearing Trump or any of his people say that?
no.
Because
That's
that would be so extreme. Like we have gone so far away from what the founding fathers wanted our federal government to look like. Like nowhere in the Constitution does it authorize federal law enforcement except to patrol the post roads. So the only law enforcement agency out there that we should have that's federal would be an arm of the Postal Service to guarantee letters and mail correspondence is delivered. Would be kind of out of date today, right? And to
I don't
deal
know if
with
I want the
any
post office enforced. I've
right,
seen some of
yeah,
their candidates.
yeah, like all the law enforcement guys would just get lost on the way to the calls, right? Um, like, dude, call UPS, man, call their guys in. No, and so it's post roads and any interstate
Yeah,
commerce. That's what the Constitution authorizes. That's it.
yeah,
And Congress shall make no laws, and I'm paraphrasing, that would supersede states' rights, state laws, right?
yeah,
So we've had this inverse flip where, and the average American, especially the more middle and liberal leaning, they want the government to do things for them,
yeah.
right? They want
Take care
universal
of it.
health care. They want support from the government, and now it's normal,
Yep. We
right?
normalized
People
it.
truly believe the federal government is supposed to be above the state government and above county, right? That was not the way it was
Yeah,
supposed to be set up ever. And will it ever get back that way? No, I don't think so, right? I think that ship has sailed. Republics do what republics do.
yeah,
They get more and more powerful and then they fall apart.
yeah. Initially, yeah. Eventually, it will.
Yeah. Every republic or democratic republic, democracy, if you want to call it that, fails. It commits its own suicide. And I don't know when ours is going to happen. I was a little worried a few months ago. Now I'm
You said it.
hopeful.
You said it.
Uh,
I
that
thought. I thought for sure. Surely, I started packing the go bags for the family. I'm like, surely
yeah.
it's
Well,
imploding.
and that's the thing, man. Like, unless you've left America and traveled extensively, not just to the hot spots that we spent most of our lives in, there's this idea that America is the greatest place on earth. We're the freest place on earth. And that's just not
Not
true.
true. Yeah.
We are still the beacon of hope and all the things that, you know, we're just infected.
Yeah.
We got rotten pieces that need to be cut out. But I mean, there are plenty of places that do freedom. Education, obviously, we're not number one anymore and haven't been in decades.
Yeah.
The reality is, we're not the best at anything except for military spending. You know, and until we, because patriots, especially conservative patriots, America, America, right? Okay, cool. You can love America while conducting an assessment and an analysis and reach the conclusion that we have a lot of room for improvement.
A
And
lot.
until the American people stand up and demand it, we're not going to get it.
No. It's so true.
So that is a very long winded answer that I don't foresee running for any offices anytime soon. Um, and the reason being is politicians like Greg Murphy, and I would only run in my district where I live, which is kind of cool because I live in the district that I grew up in.
Oh, no
I was
shit.
running for Congress in no shit the place I was raised, which was kind of cool. Very, very few congressmen do that, right? Like our congressman is not even from North Carolina, right? And we saw it like, Clinton, she ran for Senate in New York. So people will shop for districts, and that's how the game's played. I didn't want to be part of that. I was like, I will run in the district in which I live, which happened to also cover where I grew up, which I thought was cool. I would have loved the opportunity to advocate for and represent the fishermen, the farmers, and all the military folks and blue collar, because that's all we got in Eastern North Carolina. I would have loved to have been able to go to DC and advocated for
Yep.
my people,
They
right, and
truly
my
are.
neighbors. But I even at the end of the campaign, because we didn't have very long because district changed and stuff, I couldn't get local media to say my name. And if they did, it was in a negative way. Why? Because his campaign was able to pay those media outlets tens of thousands of dollars for ads. Where I didn't have that kind of funding. I mean, we raised $300,000 in 4 months for a nobody politician, never been in politics, and that was their thing. That they posted my record, right? Which I actually posted it preemptively because I knew they went.
Yeah.
I got a call from the sheriff's department where I grew up. Hey, someone from Greg Murphy's campaign came in here today looking for a mug shot or something, and I was like, "Do I have a mug shot from when I got arrested?" And they're like, "No, you don't." And this is a boy I grew up with,
Yeah.
who's now like not the sheriff, but second, like our sheriff up there. I remember when he was born. His dad was my college or my high school coach. Um, Small town, right?
Yeah.
Small county. Long story short, so preemptively, I posted my record. If you look at my record, you'll see that I speed a lot.
As we
I
all
was
do.
in a hurry most of my life. And when I speed, I don't give highway patrolmen an option to cut me a break, right? So I'm getting that 82 in a 55, right? I'm getting that
You're
ticket.
that 80-second private
Ah,
on
dude,
Saturday night.
and dude, they were like, he's a criminal. Like many of us, I
Uh,
have an assault charge. I also have a domestic, right? Well, so they tried to paint me as violent. And I'm like, dude, I'm an SF guy. I'm familiar with it. And they tried to paint me as a woman beater. What they didn't put out, and I had to, is my wife and I, ex-wife, freaking got in an argument in the driveway. I left 9 hours later, after only talking to the neighbors who heard us arguing. The sheriff's deputy swore out a warrant for both of our arrests because he couldn't find either one of us because she was off partying wherever, and I was over at my buddy's house asleep. And so I get arrested, and so does she. We hired the same attorney, never went to court. It got dropped, dismissed, right? I had the affidavit that I wrote, I had the affidavit that she wrote. There was no physical violence whatsoever. But, I've got a sitting congressman trying to run, you know, I guess you could, I mean, I've served our country, man, mostly honorably. um, at least, at least diligently and consistently, right? I've given up a lot to do what we do. And I don't want to say it like that, like because it's been nothing but a good thing. But the reality is, I could have taken a different route and not spent my
Absolutely.
adult life in the Middle East and Africa. Well, maybe not spent my adult life freaking, burying all my good friends, right? And to the disrespect that that dude and his supporters put on me because of that, man, it was disgusting. And that was a lot of it. I was like, wow. Um, at one point, Greg Murphy referred to myself and two Marine Corps buddies of mine as thugs. Thugs. And I was like, Though one of those dudes has a silver star. Both of them have purple hearts. Freaking, and the other one has a bronze star with V. And you're calling them a thug? They
Yeah.
both had TBIs. They're both 100% disabled veterans who served our country with honor, which you've never done. You know what I mean? But that's how politicians play, man. They're most of them are, let's face it, lip-wristed little beta males, and the only game they know how to play is stabbing
Slander.
people in the back.
Yep.
Right? They like the dude wouldn't even get on the same stage as me and have a debate. Right?
I mean, that's all. It tells you all you need to know about people like that, and that's
And that's
sad. That's probably what a lot of our veterans getting in the public space, trying to become leaders in our government,
yeah,
have to fight against, man.
yeah. And there's some good dudes, man, but there's still not enough of them. Pat Harrigan, he won. I don't know if you know Pat and his wife Rocky. They are both brilliant human beings. I mean, dude, you have a conversation with Pat and you're like, whoa, dude is super intelligent. So maybe one day, if he doesn't get infected by whatever it is they infect new members of Congress with up there, maybe he'll make some differences. You know, I was really happy to see like Stuart Scheller
Yeah,
getting tapped as Heads was right hand man. I was talking to Stu the other day, and I'm like, dude, go get him,
yeah.
go
Payback
get
time,
him. Yeah, because
motherfuckers.
they tried to fuck him. And there's a lot of people that are like, and so if your viewers don't know who Stewart is, Stu Sherrill was the Marine Corps colonel who spoke out in uniform on social media about the withdrawal, and he named commanders and he named the negligence in which that happened during the withdrawal. So they put him in the brig. They put that dude, a colonel, in the brig, and kind of funny how he and I met. I heard through the grapevine that he was considering running. And I got his phone number from another Marine that I knew. And I texted him. I was like, hey, bro, what's up? My name's Tony Cowden. Um, you know, we may need to just chat. And he's like, yeah, about what? I'm like, you running for Congress or not? And he goes, okay, let's meet. I was like, when? He's like, today. I was like, can't, tomorrow morning. I walk into a little coffee shop and he's just looking at me. He's like, I've told my mother and one other person that I'm even thinking about it. How do you know? And I was like, I don't know, man. I run networks. I don't know what to tell you. And and of course there was some, playing on my part, like, freaking, like ASO source ops guy or whatever. Um, Honestly, I don't know exactly where it came from, but it came through my little political network. And we sat down and chatted. He's like, man, I can't do it. He's like, but I will fucking support you. And he did, and we became friends. You know, I'm locked out. I think it was your a post you made the other day, right?
Yeah.
About I've locked myself out of every
Yep.
computer in the team room. Yep, we just did that shit.
SOCOM help desk. Dear God,
Yeah,
please help me.
yeah. But
Oh,
Stu, man, I was talking to him the other day, and I was like, "Yeah, man, go get him."
yeah.
Because let's face it, man, the DoD is just eat up with freaking politicians, generals, colonels, and all
Yep.
that. I don't know, man. I was really skeptical, to be right honest with you, about all the stuff that has happened in the last, almost month now.
Yeah.
They were coming out of the gate, man. The gate dropped, and the Trump administration. Um, I'm surprised, man, pleasantly. Like,
Yeah.
holy crap!
They
And
hit it
people are
hard.
mad about USAID. I mean, you've been around USAID, and,
Yeah.
and like the one thing I know about USAID is that they throw the best parties. And they provide us all kinds of cool cover. And if I play my money right, I can get them to buy me gravel.
Yeah.
Um, what but people are mad, and I'm like, how is cutting our government bad? And then of course, oh no, they're going to get rid of the Department of Education.
Good.
Have you not seen the stats?
Yeah.
It's a failure in every single way, I'll ask people, name one thing the United States federal government has been successful at in the last decade. The Department of Interior's conservation model is successful. and that is it.
Yeah.
And it's being tested all over by the liberal agenda, right? They were introduction of wolves when, the wildlife, in Colorado is a good example where they're like, don't do it. But the wolves are cute, so let's put them back in. But otherwise, man, the U.S. conservation model and the Department of the Interior is arguably the only successful part of the United States federal government.
Yep.
So, I don't know, bro.
Yeah. I'm excited. I think we got a lot of great things in the horizon. I heard yesterday that Elon's going to start looking at government officials that make over a certain amount of money. So
I heard that too, and I was
excited
like,
for that.
Ooh, okay, do Republicans? Let's do the Republicans from Texas.
There's two people that I really want to see targeted: Nancy Pelosi and Dan Crenshaw.
I mean, there's only 250 some of them. It shouldn't take that long.
It shouldn't. Every last one of them. One of them. Let's Elizabeth Warren. All of them. Let's take a look at it and take all that money and then put it into our government. Give it back to actual offices that are doing the right thing. Like those budgets, pump them up. If there's an office that's working, if there's programs that are working, put money towards that. Find the places where the money needs to go. The day of wasting resources has come to an end, hopefully, and we shall see some some accountability.
Government is always going to be wasteful, just by its own nature, right? I would even argue that even dictatorships, as efficient as they are, still have a lot of fraud, waste, and abuse, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because people are involved, right? The lowest common denominator of every problem on this planet is people.
Yep.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not willing to really solve that problem. That would mean we all go away. I think Mother Nature one of these days is going to get tired of our shit and be like, you know what? Those dinosaurs were really cool. I'm bringing them back, and I'm going to let them deal with you.
We're gonna go full Jurassic Park. That's it. When we see scientists actually create and clone dinosaurs, that's when you really need to start packing your bug out bag and start heading for the mountains.
That's how Mother Nature gets us back, right there. That's my theory. We're going to be fighting dinosaurs.
And I'm telling you, just follow Tony and see where he's going to go. And that's where you need to go take and pack up the family, pack up the trailer, and if that man's heading up to the mountains,
I'm calling my buddy T-Dubs, Travis Wilson, man. He's down in Palm Beach, Florida. He kills iguanas all day long, every day. That's what that dude does, is murder iguanas. So I'm going to be like, dude, he's got to know how to kill freaking dinosaurs. It's the closest thing. I'm calling that guy.
Tony, I can't thank you enough for being here today, man. Dude, we got to run it back because we didn't get a chance to talk about your nonprofit. But if people want to follow you and get in touch with you, where can they go?
Yeah, man. So my company is capablyincorporated.com. I'm like every other, soft guy, former, what do they call it? Former action guy.
Yeah.
Even though I try to stay current. Yeah, that's where I do all, my shooting training and that sort of thing. We do pistol carbine. My passion is long range, but we do it all. The nonprofit, man, that was my reaction to politics. It is in my nature to help. My passion for hunting, I was like, hey, man, me and this Force Recon guy and a Coast Guard guy, 3 hunting buddies, we said, hey, man, we're going to start this nonprofit called thereasonOutdoors.org. And the only thing that really sets us a whole lot different than anybody else in that space, because, there's plenty of nonprofits that take guys hunting, is that we want to teach guys to hunt, right? We're not just going to take you to Texas, put you, on a high fence hunt, dial that scope, and you shoot it, you're done. No, man, I'm from start to finish, packing list, training program, and then when we do put that animal on the ground, if you've never butchered and processed it, I do one side, you do the other.
Hell yeah.
So that's what we're doing, that, man. And that's the reasonoutdoors.org. So yeah, those are the two things, man. Of course, Instagrams and all that stuff, Tony _ Cowden _. And yeah, man, I try to put, good information out there for the young bucks and the old bucks. My lessons learned, what good am I as a senior or a Zulu if
Yeah.
I'm not giving back. You know,
Absolutely.
I sadly, you know, we're all us old dudes. We learned a lot of lessons the hard way. And so if I can talk to the young guys or even help fix the older guys, that's where I'm at in life, man.
Hell yeah.
I just, I don't see me getting into doing the politics and saving the world. I think that's probably done for me, man. Like I said, it was not a good experience. It made me feel sick and disgusting. Since, you know, from the Aboga journey to the nonprofit, man, I can honestly say that I'm happy.
Hell yeah.
Right? 5 years ago, I would have said I'm content.
Yeah.
Now that I've tasted what happiness feels like truly, man, like joy in here. Like, I don't get in Instagram fights and bickering anymore and stuff. It's all about helping dudes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I spend 80% of my day doing things that help other people. And not just soft guys, man. I mean, regular people,
Everybody.
my neighbors, man. And that helps me be happy.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at in life, man. Freaking, and it's cool. I like sharing that shit with people, man. I like to see my brothers who, you know, are borderline miserable because of all of the operator syndrome stuff. I love showing them the pathway to happiness.
Hell yeah.
Right? Or at least sharing mine with them so they can figure out theirs. But that's where I'm at, brother.
That's the best thing in life, man. Dude, thank you so much for being here, brother.
Oh, thanks.
If you guys want to get a hold of Tony, get in the description of this episode. Go on Instagram, follow him, and hit him up. And thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time. Till then, take care. Oh, and go to opensecrets.com and check out Dan Crenshaw.
Yeah, have fun with that. Thanks again, brother. I enjoyed it, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely, man. We'll see you.